Sure, everything is working. We have 1 hour. Wait. Medical condition Wi-Fi.
Hey, what's up, Christian? Can you hear me? Yeah, I can record.
Daniel, is
Yeah.
that you who would probably make me the other admin?
I think Christian is the. I think he just made me admin, but I could try. I'll see.
Oh, I see. Yeah, Christian has host. Christian
Yeah,
might
he's
be
the
able to
host.
hear us.
Yeah, he's host. Yeah, you could switch it to John. Can he hear us where I am? Host allows to record this meeting. Oh, you have a delay, John?
I do, although that one, oh yeah, no, it's still delaying pretty good. I can probably just deal with it. It's not very loud as long as the audio is not bad on your end. Although I wonder if it'll mess with the recording at all.
I hope not. I
Oh,
mean,
there'll always be a delay, Christian said.
oh, okay. But I think the recording comes out decent because I have no delay on my side.
Cool. And just to recheck in, this thing kicks off at 2, right?
Yeah, that's what I read it as. So that means in like 6 minutes, right?
Yep. Yes. Are we doing another check 1 2? Audience member can test you. Hello. We're just waiting on our esteemed panelists. Although I think most of you heard this, I mean, we're still going to run basically fireside chat method. Christian and Jim had reached out to me about moderating, and so we're just kind of going to do a little intro section where Greg Lucius Meredith and then Doug Rushkoff and Jim White's Carver are giving the stage a little bit or putting the hot seat. But I'll explain the idea for the format when we officially get started and they're here. Does anyone want to share this Zoom link into the community leaders channel? If it hasn't been already, I think it did go in there once, but
Yeah, I'll double check that right now.
thanks. And if anybody wants to give Jim or Greg a special call out, that's awesome too. And hello, folks who have joined us via live coding. Thanks for coming. We're just waiting for our 3 esteemed panelists of sorts. We'll explain the format here just maybe in 4 minutes or so. Hey, Christian, glad to hear your voice. Welcome, Door. Douglas Rushkoff and Jim White's Carver and Greg Lucius before we get rolling. Should that be the tip off point? If we'll just call go time or like the hard start when Greg, Doug, and Jim join us. It's good to see folks. It's been a while.
Hi, everyone. Where are you at, Christian? I see this big thing in the background. Doris chatting. Who's leading the talk? He asks.
Right on. Yeah, I can hear a little bit. Yeah, we do have an agenda. I will share it into the chat just now and onto the live stream. It's a little ways down. Here, I can actually pop it to the top, I suppose, as we're going in.
Can anyone hear me?
Yes, welcome, Jim.
Hi, greetings all. Is this audio fine? I've been having trouble. My computer's misbehaving. I hope I make it through this.
So the general idea for today was to do like a regular fireside chat, but on the front end, presuming Douglas Rushkoff's joining us, doing a little sort of panel model for just maybe 30 minutes or so. The idea being to cover governance, especially utility of consensus, benefits and blockages, distributism and subsidiarity, which are some of the topics that Douglas Rushkoff talks towards, especially around the idea of platform collaboration. And then also economics had been identified as a topic the community was interested in. Mechanisms of value distribution and exchange, tokens versus money versus currency, the legal, but also social and cultural ramifications behind those words, you know, as we look towards using amps, or, you know, some grocery stores get away with even calling it money, you know. Yeah, so we were going to use a sort of hot seat model, put one person in the question seat and other people more in the question asking role for that first bit, and just kind of pass it around from Jim to Greg to Douglas Rushkoff, and then popcorn, just take questions from the crowd, from anybody in the room, and then kind of let it go into your typical fireside. And so Jim and Christian had asked me to moderate, but I'm believing everybody facilitating themselves to some extent and participating, and we'll keep it loose. But I am going to try and keep like a stack of speakers, especially if Douglas Rushkoff gets off. I imagine a lot of people will want to ask questions. And so just for the purposes of everybody kind of getting a fair turn, we're going to do it with the hand raising feature, which actually, for those of you in Zoom, maybe we can demo this really quick. You go down into the manage participants section, which if you put your mouse down by the bottom bar, you'll see the green share screen icon. You click on manage participants, you'll get a bar that'll pop up in the top right where you can raise your hand. And if folks would, just to test it out and make sure this is working, people could raise their hands and then put their hands down.
Xander, I'm on my mobile phone, so I don't know how to do that.
Does anyone know the hand raising mechanism on the mobile?
Yeah, just chime in with your question.
Yeah, I think you know, if possible, the best thing to do is turn your video on and raise your hand like this. That always works.
I can't see everyone at all times. Welcome, Douglas Rushkoff. Welcome, Greg Lucius Meredith, into the conversation.
Hey.
Kick this thing off.
How you doing?
Doing well. Thanks so much. My name's John Guerin.
Hey.
I've been reached out to kind of help moderate and facilitate the conversation, although there's many brilliant facilitators in here who I also invite to jump in. I was just telling folks briefly the little...
Yeah, I was listening on YouTube, so you don't
great.
need to tell me anything.
Right on, right on. Well, cool. So I would love if so Jim Whitescarver, who's part of DAO as well as Synereo, and then Greg Lucius Meredith with Synereo, the Chief Science Officer of Synereo, and then yourself, Douglas Rushkoff, who many know, recent author of the book Throwing Rocks at the Google Bus. Would love if each of you introduced yourself, maybe the 2-sentence version that you use on a typical day or a daily basis. Do you want to go first, Jim? Or Lucius, if you want to jump in.
Yeah, just so you know, my name is Lucius Gregory Meredith. Lucius is my first name. I go by Greg because that's how my parents always address me. So yeah, I'm just a poor, stupid mathematician and musician who has got sucked into this blockchain stuff to try to bring a little bit of order to the chaos. So that's kind of my quick introduction. I have a long history in computing and mathematics.
Great. Jim, do you want to go ahead?
You can hear me now. Yeah, Greg is the mathematician behind Synereo, and he's sort of the reason everybody is here. He's has the Synereo vision that has drawn us all in, and it's been embellished by many people along the way. But he's he's our leader to the new society, and contracts among each other that are safe and easy and give us our privacy. Myself, I'm an information physicist wannabe, information technologist. I've been at the bleeding edge in a 50-year career, and we're retired. Now I got to learn the stuff all over again. It's like shit.
Awesome.
Great. Douglas Rushkoff.
I'm Douglas Rushkoff. I write books about media technology and society. I'm mainly dedicated to promoting the use of technology for human ends. And I still believe that there's a place for human beings in the technologized landscape of tomorrow.
Love it. So next I would love if you three, Lucius, Jim, and Douglas would respond towards both how you came to that introduction, I guess just in general, some intentions. I think Douglas already pointed to some of, what do you hope to get out of this conversation, and what are you up to in general these days?
Well, Douglas was part of the well, which grew out of the eyes, and there was another community participate, which were the first communities that we like the ones we know today on the internet. I was introduced to him through a common friend, and I wasn't on the well. I mean, I love the well. I used the well, but I think I had an account, but I was tied up on eyes. In any case, a lot of great things came out of it. Howard Rheingold's the whole efforts, and I don't want to name names because I get confused as to who's in what community. But it's like coming full circle again on how we can create a collective intelligence, and Douglas is a seer in that regard in terms of the things we learned in our research on eyes. Like, we will do better with asynchronous communication. And I'm not going to give you Douglas's philosophy, but this media today, we just have to stop using it. We have to be more asynchronous. But yes, we also have to be synchronous at times. It's a double-edged thing. And being synchronous here is a great thing. We all have to synchronize in order for us to have a greater effect than the individuals in the group. So it's wonderful to hook up, and I really want to learn from the master here, and let him, help guide us into the vision we have for this future of society.
Agreed. Jim, I know that you're doing really amazing work too towards keeping the humanity and technology and especially looking at the governance piece and platform collaboration. Do you want to touch just briefly on how you see your work intersecting with that of Douglas Rushkoff and Synereo in general?
Well, you know, the beauty of what we're doing is we're all in harmony anyway. His work is helping our work, and our work is helping his work. And that happens without coordination to a large extent. What we can do by coordinating is, you know, it's like in the art of war, you have to know when to divide and when to merge. Okay, both things are good. Okay, and but if we, you know, if we merge, our power is exponentially increased as we merge upward. And merging, you know, this, you know, our research showed the ideal group size is 2. You get 2 people to merge, and then you get 2 others are merged, and then they merge. And this is the way the group solution is better than the best individual solution in a group. You know, this is, you know, we had some great results that, you know, are not that well publicized.
Sweet collective intelligence. Lucius, do you want to talk towards just what you've been working on and then intentions for this specific conversation here today? I know Lucius is on mobile.
I was on mute, sorry. Yeah, sure. First of all, I should come clean. I got confused about the time zone, so I was thinking this was going to be 2 o'clock PDT, not EDT. And that was entirely my failing. I think I even clarified it with Jim and then forgot. So I'm supposed to be at a physical therapy session. So, but were I not under time pressure, I was really hoping to really just follow Jim's lead. Jim was the one who invited me to the conversation. I really enjoyed the things he just said just now. Those were quite awesome. I think I'm also really interested in being able to recognize you know, a kind of more harmonious communication and coordination. I think we're in a situation where we need the wisdom of the collective because the problems that are facing us are pretty damn hard, and so we need help. and the one immediate source of help is the wisdom of the collective. And so I'm kind of in this to find ways that we can access the wisdom of the collective more practically and more easily. So I'd love to see how that might emerge in the conversation.
Great. And thanks again, Jim Whitescarver, to organizing this. It's my pleasure as well to be here. And Dor just made a comment as to whether or not Douglas Rushkoff is familiar quite with Synereo yet. And Dor, I'm unmuting you now. I wonder if you want to just give a quick shout out to what Synereo is, just so we're all on the same page. Or if anyone else wants to.
Dor's still on mute.
Yeah, I got him unmute. Dora, can you hear us? Or Lucius or anyone else, please step in.
How about John? Does John want to introduce Synereo?
Sure, I feel like the least qualified, maybe Christian, but
Actually, can we let Dor take my place here? I'm again, I have to enter this physical therapy session.
Yeah,
so.
Thanks for joining us briefly, Lucius.
Lucius, Can you give a brief introduction to Synereo with just one sentence or two sentences?
Sure. So Synereo is a decentralized social network. So effectively, I began from the point of view of looking at the economic imbalance and the privacy imbalance back in 2009, and quickly hit upon this idea of a decentralized social network and began looking for a way to monetize that. And found the blockchain technology. Internally, the group that we were and monetized it in the sense that people who own the network could participate in an economy that would make the network self-sustaining. Internally, we were already talking about the attention economy, and then I found Dor, who was working on similar ideas and had sort of gone public with the language of the attention economy as related to a decentralized social network with using a blockchain as a building block for the self-sustainability of the network. And so Dor and I joined forces, and Synereo has been growing out of that interaction. So in summary, it's a decentralized social network that uses blockchain technology to help the network be self-sustaining. We have an architecture that supports privacy, and we have an architecture that allows for the control, coordinated control of the dissemination of information, and finally we are organizing the network in such a way that it belongs to the people. That's sort of inherent in the way we are viewing the value of the decentralization.
Great. Thanks so much. And thanks for joining us really quickly. Enjoy your physical therapy.
Thank you. Ciao for now.
On time constraints, really quick, I was understanding, Douglas Rushkoff, that you probably have about an hour. Is that correct, or 40 minutes now?
He's on mute.
Unmute.
Yeah, I got another one at like 3, so.
Okay, perfect.
Cool.
Well, if you want to dive in on intentions and what you're up to these days.
Yeah, let's in order to get things going. My intention for this, if I have one, my real intention was just to serve any way that you guys want. If I have a personal intention, it's to find out, I guess it's to be convinced that there's a reason for this. It's to understand what are we solving for, and how will it help, particularly in the backdrop of what's going on right now globally. What I see us as undergoing a transition from a global media environment, which was the radio and television media environment, which peaked around Ronald Reagan's time and tearing down the Berlin Wall, and has transitioned since then to a digital media environment where we have Donald Trump wanting to build walls and Europeans wanting to exit the euro. And to me, that's a very digital media environment, which is potentially nationalist and discrete, and in some ways isolated and yearning for the past. Digital technology is built on memory systems. So it's no wonder that human beings living on these systems are becoming more and more obsessed with memories, even false memories of when America was great. How are we going to make that great again? And when Britain was Britain, how are we going to return to that time? So when I look at that, I wonder what is the most what is the best cure for this? Is it a globally scaled blockchain cryptocurrency based attention commodified social network?
I think I could do
what? So that's what I'm looking to get answered for me.
Yeah, I'll give a brief take here. I know everybody wants to answer this. but the technology can be used in positive or negative ways, and not using the technology will not solve the problem. We have to use the technology, and what we've done is we found a safe way to use it. Okay, one that will ultimately empower us all with a great intelligence consisting of all of our computers. Okay, empowering the individual and humanity. That's what we're about. We're using decentralized blockchain technologies. I mean, temporarily we're using Ethereum, but that will soon be placed with the Synereo fractally sharded blockchain, where your consensus and my consensus, there's no need for that to be a public record.
Right.
It's provable between us, and can have a mediation contract, okay, where we get a third person to break the tie or whatever contract we want to make.
So this is a good tie-in. So the first kind of topic we wanted to really dive in on was kind of this governance piece, and I think this idea that digital media has this embedded yearning for the past in it is a really interesting piece, because I think that as we talk about privacy, as we talk about attention economy, and these blockchain cryptographic systems, I think a big question that comes up is like about consensus and also like our ability to forgive and forget in like what's that role. And so just I think, I don't know if people want to kind of go popcorn here and just talk towards like where's the tool set right here, right now, like what is developed and also what's in the near future, like how important is consensus, like global consensus, and what are the benefits, the costs, the challenges. So I will kind of step back into just facilitator role, but I just wanted to frame that. Malthus John got his hand up over here.
Hey guys, I just wanted to give a little response to part of what Douglas asked, or at least kind of what I intuited he was asking, because I'm a little bit familiar with where he's coming from, reading his books and watching a lot of videos on him. It's really important that we establish a new definition to the words the attention economy, because it's already been used. It already represents something, and you hit it on the head. It's commoditized. And so the important twist that we're bringing to the table is that this is a fully decentralized and distributed attention economy, which I like to try to refer to as a sovereign attention economy, but I haven't quite got that. That hasn't gone viral yet. But so what that means, Douglas, is that rather than the existing intermediaries being in control of both the marketing channels and the financial sustenance of the media in general via the corporations and their marketing agencies, is that we're saying that inherently on this network, your attention has value, and it's your value. You are the one who gets it. So once you put that into once you reverse that, you turn the tide or upside down, it changes the flow of things quite severely and important way.
And we're giving control to you and not to the computer. Well said, John.
Right, but I mean, in the end, the underlying assumption is that my attention is worth something, and that I would assume, and that the things I say are worth something. So if I want to be paid for making a speech to you, you want to be paid for paying attention to my speech. Where does the money come from to pay both sides of this equation and subsidize the technology on which this happens?
I've got Evan, and then let's do the raise hand feature. I'm going to keep facilitating this. Raise your hand if you want to jump on stage, please and thanks.
So I think there's a lot going on here. I think you make a very interesting point about how digital media seems to be having this sort of regressive. People want to go back to, quote unquote, when America was great because of the way that it stores information. And that's one aspect of the change that has been brought. Like there's a suite of changes that have been caused by technology. For example, the echo chamber effect of people selecting their media to conform to what they want to see, the ability to reach out to anybody, not just a one-to-many type broadcast type communication platform, and various changes like this. And the idea of decentralization, it's a sort of a heavy word, is you eliminate the large centralized intermediary in between. So we used to have a one-to-many platform where it's broadcast, where I'm a broadcaster, I make a message, a bunch of people see it. Then we had the information revolution, and now we have a mediated decentralized system, right? I can communicate to somebody else on the network, but it goes through a centralized intermediary like Facebook or Google or whatever, whether that's email or on a website or whatever. And the decentralized approach eliminates the middleman. And now the communication is going directly between nodes in a flat network. And this means that the middleman, who's formerly very powerful in the information arrangement, is now completely obsolete and unnecessary. So all of the value that the central middleman used to take, which for Facebook is almost all of it. If somebody uploads content, they're investing effort in making the content, and Facebook basically walks off with all of the value of that.
Right. I mean, if you look at internet history made super short, there were kids like me on this thing we called FidoNet, which had no centralization at all. You know, FidoNet was computers that called each other up at night, and we did our email that way. And it took 3 days to get an email because your friend's computer had to call the other one, but it was a completely decentralized, basically an asynchronous mesh network tied together with handsets put into those sort of modems where you put the handset of the phone in a modem. Then we got the internet, which was an extension of mostly that decentralized thing with nodes. AOL came along and tried to create a walled garden and centralize, and all the magazines and publications that wanted to come online went to AOL because they felt safe, centralized. Then they realized, oh, we have more power decentralized. They all created their own things. We got something close to an open web type philosophy. So Facebook comes along and everybody's afraid again. And now all the players are jumping onto Facebook, which is somehow with their war chest, it seems capable of creating a new walled garden, even on the internet after the internet got out. So I get what you're saying is, look, the internet's going to work better in a more decentralized way, in a more distributed fashion, more like a network again than a single server sitting in the middle of Facebook's coffers.
So you asked the very insightful question of where does the money for this come from? If you're going to pay both sides of the equation, how does that? It seems magical, right? You're creating value from nothing. And the fact of the matter is that when somebody creates new content, they have created value from nothing. Wealth, as we conceive of it, is made whenever something is manufactured or created. But that doesn't create capital. It doesn't create money when you do that, right? So what we're suggesting is that if I invest energy and make something that's valuable, and somebody else goes retroactively, oh, I really like that, and voluntarily transfers some of a limited resource that they control to the person that made that or shared that, that is a beneficial transaction for both parties. Value has been created, even though the currency that is being transferred is only flowing voluntarily from one person to another person. And when you apply that to a whole network, it's sort of propagating out in the network in the direction of people who are interested in seeing the content. You get people who are seeing things that they're really interested in, which they like, and you get people whose content is getting exposure, which they like. Both sides of the equation like what is occurring.
And when you amp something in a micropayment, you may only be amping it, a half a penny. But when everybody amps it, whether it's in the Creative Commons or whether it's open source software, if everybody uses it, then the value gets returned to the person who created it, even though he shared it openly.
I think Malthus had a quick related question, and then back to Rushkoff, and then Eric, I got you on stack. Thanks.
No, I was going to respond to Doug's question about where does the money come from, and Evan did a good start at it too. You can't look at it from the linear existing models. Linear growth is kaput. I think you've established that. When you look at this as a holistic model and it turns back into a circle and it's nonlinear, it's a harder question to ask. Where does the money come from? It's fused in at all the connection points. In the old model, a bank is going to loan the corporation some money or some cash flow to pay for this multi-million-dollar advertising campaign. And where does that money come from? From thin air, right? So that's what I think that's what the comments were before. Our thin air, our abstraction resides in the cryptocurrency, the coin. So we already have that established. It's just got to be put out into the community to start growing in value. And another thing that's important is there's like a ping pong action going on where the social contract, which is our method that's different from Bitcoin, which works on proof of work. We're working off of a proof of social contract. So if a company comes in, wants to do an ad, what they would call an ad, first of all, the users have to opt in to receive that. So they have kind of built-in ad blocking capability. That's important. But the company amps the post. In other words, it's attached. There's a value of these amps attached to the post, and that makes it go through its network a little more robustly, a little more, with more strength than without it. Now, in the network, then there's always going to be nodes, and they're going to be people that are like, say, a car fan, and they're going to boost this Chevrolet car post because they like the car in it, and they can get a return on their investment based on the response of their audience, because you put in some of your attention to help push this through the network. And as the engagement happens, as that social contract happens, there's a feedback loop. It comes back to you. And it also comes back to the originator in a form of a secondary number here we haven't mentioned yet, which is the reputation, the REO. So as long as you have a good reputation as someone who puts these things out and a good response to your network, then everything stays what might be called profitable in the old model. It stays in the positive side. If you start producing bad stuff and your reputation goes down, then it becomes much more costly and ultimately impossible to broadcast on this network. So there's a lot of things that are nonlinear that you have to look at. How does this affect that, and how does that, how was that affected by the previous? And it comes back into a circle.
Douglas, would you like to respond? Unmuted.
Yeah.
Oh, I think I remuted you.
Yep.
You're
now you're on. Now we hear you. Go ahead.
I mean, the obviously the danger of the model is that unpopular opinions may not end up heard.
So
I think the whole reason communities want to become dark is because of the hierarchical system we're replacing, and that they won't need to be dark anymore or as dark. They may still be anonymous.
So it's not really the case that people with unpopular opinions will not be heard at all, but it does mean that what is sort of happening now with the echo chamber effect of people selecting what kinds of things that they are interested in, and the network will selectively direct more things that they are more likely to pay attention to, and then it'll do more of that either by type of content or by person, and it will send them less things that they are less in favor of. the thing that the Rio network is attempting to optimize. Things you pay attention to, it's like, okay, that you like that, let's do more of that. Things you don't pay attention to, nix that. So you get this, you're not going to censor people, because there, as long as there are people who pay attention to them, that content is going to keep going towards the people who are paying attention to it. If 0 people pay attention to you, yeah, nobody's going to see what you have to say. But that's desirable, because nobody wants to.
But you can actually amp your message, so you can use currency.
Unpopular.
You can use currency to get your message out. So if no one has any attention, you can still amplify and promote your message, just like you can do on Facebook today. So there is, yeah.
So I want to bring it to Douglas, and then I want to catch a question from Eric.
I'm supposed to say something.
If you have any response, or I can take another.
Yeah. Does that answer your question, or do you still have questions?
Well, I mean, I don't know. It could turn into an interview of you guys about Synereo, which I guess is interesting in a certain way. I mean, the other assumption is that the currency that you develop in this social network setting will ultimately be able to interface with the scarcity-based economy of water and electricity and everything else, which, you know, God willing, I'd love to see it. These are tricky assumptions. I mean, it's interesting. The way I would go about something like what we're describing, particularly if this is a non-local network that's not based in, it's not based in shareholders' servers, but the idea is that this network is a distributed network through all the nodes, right? More like a Tor type thing than is getting people to make that. If people make the hardware investment, or are willing to keep their machines on and sort of help make this thing happen, then it's, in a way, we're talking about the original internet on a certain level. It's like, how do we get the net how do we get the internet to do the internet again? You know, only better. The part I wonder about is why bring this, and I know I'm using the term loosely, why bring the profit motive into it in the first place?
To create the proper incentives. Unless you incentivize the system with tokens or dollars or public pressure or whatever, okay, you won't get the behavior from the system that you desire.
Is it the behavior from the system that you're not going to get, or the behavior from the developers that you need, the early in developers who want to be able to cash out when this thing hits? You know, I understand they want. If you're going to spend 10 years of your life building something, you want to be able to feed your family on it. But you might be able to accomplish that without the money piece on the other side.
Yeah, I don't think so. And you know, I don't expect to make anything on it. And you know, well, I do actually. I shouldn't say that. I mean, but it won't bother me if that doesn't happen, because in our communities, we're all creating our own tokens. And the AMP is just one of them that's valuable for attention in the attention economy when and if it exists. You know, at one point, the $500 or 2 Bitcoins I put into it was worth $25,000.
Right. I mean, I'll tell you, my personal concern with amplifying the effects of the attention economy is that, you know, this is what they were talking about really in Vannevar Bush Eisenhower days, that our ability to colonize the planet has been diminished. The countries fought back. World War II is over. India became independent. African nations were becoming independent. And Vannevar Bush and Licklider, whoever else was around, then went to Eisenhower and said, don't worry, there's a new room for there's new surface area for the marketplace, and that will be human attention. So then we ended up in a world where, yes, our attention is the new commodity, and it's very hard to take control of that. You know, I'm concerned about selling it. I guess I want to retain it.
Yeah, and you know, this is a reactive programming model. Okay, it's not the proactive model we're all used to.
Right.
You have the proactive side too, you know, in terms of my reacting to your stuff, or me giving you a permission or trust. But the reactive side, the mathematics is beautiful. Okay, you know, it almost makes you cry. But you know, this is this is the bleeding edge today, and you know, I was always there. You know, we developed an SGML markup system for forums back in 1985. You know, long before HTML, and we promoted in the World Wide Web the idea of adding forums so that we could make interactive applications rather than just hypertext. And you know, Mark Andrews implemented it. The rest is history. The reactive programming is, you know, uses abstract algebra, and it's a very abstract, but it's simple, really. It's just, you know, you're translating one thing into another, and you have a program or something in the middle that transfers them from one thing to another, and you have a whole network of these things working, and these are described in the process calculus, or Craig's version, the row calculus, which is mobile processes. It's mobile, asynchronous communicating processes. So we have a formal mathematical basis for all of our programs. Okay, and they're enforced on the network. Okay, so you know, it's like collectively, you know, we essentially agree to agree in a provable manner, and you know, and the other aspects of this are very strong authentication and security that we need to collaborate on claiming for ourselves in order to get out from the monolithic media system.
Right.
I wonder if Eric wants to jump in and then maybe direct attention towards that last piece of authentication and privacy, which I know a lot of folks here have thought a lot about. Eric, did you have a question still?
I believe I did. It was a little while ago. I feel like I've kind of gotten lost in the unfurling conversation. I think it had to do something to do with what Malthus came in and popped in to say, the creation of value, and the idea that Synereo doesn't exist in an isolated realm. It still interacts with the real world. So there will be real events in the real world and meet space where you have the idea of trying to get the word out about a party, or trying to get the word out about an event of some sort of music performance or whatever. So you've got the idea that value comes in the form of an advertisement that you might opt into, and that value is something that is valuable in both worlds, and it translates from the real world over into this new digital, you know, attention market space. But as you guys continued around that discussion, the idea that this is not a new idea is exactly spot on there, Douglas. I think that you know, in many ways we're trying to reinvent something that is an ever-flowing sort of pendulum from one extreme to another, and I think the effort to try and introduce a Rio and an AMP as a balancing token, or balancing mechanism between something that you can't quantify, Rio, which is ephemeral and it changes between individuals over time, and a token which does provide some incentive from a financial perspective, to be able to blend those in an economically equitable sort of mechanism is kind of the challenge that we're in right now to figure out what are the physics of this economy look like? What incentives make sense? What incentives don't make sense? Because this is largely an exploration in central planning versus decentralized, let everything happen. So there's that balance between those always.
Rushkoff, do you want to respond to that? And then I've got a question from the crowd that's text-based.
No, just let it roll. Let
Cool.
it go.
It's yeah, I mean, I think that these points are nicely combined because it's right. Attention economy, if Synereo has an attention economy, it is directly related to the capitalist system it's in, which dictates a lot of the attention and time that we have to spare or not, as I have to work 2 or 3 jobs, you know? But the question is from ICO Countdown. I don't know how it's pronounced, but it's what do you think the worst part of technology is and its association with people?
I mean, the worst part of technology right now is that the people developing it are unaware of the economic operating system that they're writing their software and for. You know, they assume that the VC or angel who comes in with the money is right, and they pivot towards exit strategies rather than sustainable outcomes. Another big problem with technology now is that it's very easy to externalize the social, environmental, and labor costs of an application. You know, people using an iPhone don't see the 2 refrigerators worth of electricity that you're using because you've externalized it to servers and you just plug in a nice little battery. We don't see the children in Brazil and Africa and China who are essentially living on mountains of electronic waste because that gets externalized. And the other problem with technology right now is that, and it's partly because of the way it's being sold to us by the market, so it really goes back to capitalism, but is people are more likely to want to adapt themselves and their consciousness to the technology that's in the room rather than program or configure the technology to themselves or their needs or to human beings. So as a result, people end up getting more and more distanced from the sort of the natural cycles, whether day and night or seasons or human to human rapport and the kinds of things that, you know, we've evolved on for 200,000 or 300,000 years, that when you remove them, sometimes your body and consciousness aren't really, they know something's missing, but they can't figure out what it is. So we can have this great 3-hour-long conversation on Zoom like this, but something's missing. And the thing that's missing is that we can't see whether our irises are getting bigger or smaller as we agree or disagree with each other. So it becomes harder to form rapport. So you have this whole conversation that's missing one element. And that tends us towards certain kinds of solutions and to leave certain needs behind. So I kind of want us to bring along some of those mechanisms with us into these spaces, or at least into our future. Otherwise, some of the sort of the governing factors that prevent some of the fear and extremism and some of the scenarios that we don't want to see us move into, they'd be easier to mitigate if we could maintain some of these, not that they're better, but some of the rhythms and biologies that we've gotten used to.
Program or be programmed. That was a big theme that the community had talked about getting ready for this conversation. And I'll throw that to Evan first, who's had his hand up, but anyone else want to toss your hand? I think I'll take probably just one more question, and then maybe we can kind of throw it to Douglas Rushkoff to kind of take the last 5 minutes or so.
I think the common thread for a lot of the stuff that you just said just now is that the market is ruling the technology, basically. And what that means from a centralized technology is one size fits all is very economical. It's cheaper to do that. Outsourcing, cheaper to do that, make more money. Externalizing costs, other side effects, environmental effects, and so on, externalize that, right? It's business sense. But there's also a more subtle sort of dimension of the market rule in the technology of I'm going to make myself important as the technology provider. And that is a very insidious and subtle effect. For example, if you're Facebook, how do we design our platform to make it sticky? How do we make people want to stay on it all the time? You have this kind of design process going on about how do we make ourselves as important as possible. And this is the big thing about a decentralized version is that incentive is gone. You're talking about how unnatural it is to have this mediated, on Facebook, it's like, oh yeah, you get to communicate directly with some other person. It's like, it's not directly, like you're communicating directly with them, but the platform has been completely tailored with all of these built-in, all this baggage that doesn't necessarily serve the two parties. In fact, often is actively hostile to the two parties in a lot of respects. And a decentralized version is just like, it's simple, just whatever people want, just do that.
It's Synereo, your system, your rules. Had to put an ad in there.
So I guess the question that I would pitch to you, Douglas Rushkoff, is the problems that you seem to be pointing out are the effect of a centralized entity making a decision that benefits itself. And that if you eliminate the power of the controlling centralized entity to do those things, and the people who are involved at the basic level go, yeah, we don't want to do those things, then just don't do them, right? So,
and I think that's what Douglas is saying. Just don't do them. But I'm saying, we have to be proactive and reactive. We have to amp the stuff that we want promoted, and we can do so with a fraction of a cent. It doesn't matter. We just have to amp it, and the reward we get for amping it is that if it was a good thing, and a lot of people get amped, I'm going to be a curator and rewarded with amps. Okay, and and the individual participants are rewarded to a lesser effect, and the creator of the content, of course, is rewarded. So by building in the proper incentives and building a system that lets us write our own contracts with each other, it's a Synereo social contracting mechanism, and makes our lives easier. It's like, we were saying, how do we divvy up this, the role of who's going to contact who and sending out our tweets or whatever. And, if we had contracts in place to do that on Synereo, we just would, when we went to edit somewhere, we would be warned that somebody already edited there. Okay, that was in the contract. That was in our filters, they call it in Synereo. It's sort of the programs or the contracts and the hashtags, so to speak. But and then the two elements in the calculus are just @ and hashtags. It's such a simple language, it's impossible to understand. No. And then that is a channel. It's like you're an @ and what you receive is a filter, whatever. But
the power of the platform.
I'm going to interrupt and let Douglas Rushkoff take it. I know he's only got 4 minutes, and also Daniel had his hand up, and we'll see if we have time for that question.
Do we do Daniel first, or should I say?
Sure. Daniel, you want to jump in real quick? I would just go for it, Douglas.
Oh,
Oh, there he is. Go for it.
Yeah, no, I was just wanted to emphasize that kind of, I'm a little bit on Douglas's concerns, but I think I have found a certain confidence in what I hear from the Synereo community. I'm fairly new to the community, but my concern is, technology is always the menu and not the meal. The meal itself are our communities that we form. So hopefully in the platform that they build is that the medium is the message, and now our community is the medium. So if you want to get out your message or whatever, it's about the connections and the formation of your communities and how it fits into like an ecosystem. And I think this is what everybody's trying to articulate or whatever, but it's about pushing this narrative to more of the collective and how we build this new story. And it kind of goes back to the old story of where we kind of keep it peer-to-peer, we keep it local, and hopefully we could scale it up. But I always kind of don't want to lose the humanity, and that's where I'm glad when Greg speaks, because he wants to put humanity in the equation, and it's not just technology, and it's building your reputation and your communities, and hopefully the technology facilitates that. But I was just kind of wondering your maybe pushing that narrative of the collective.
So, Doug, I just want to interject one thing before you guys close. This meeting, along with Wednesdays, occurs at the same time every week, 2 p.m. So you're welcome back anytime. We usually have CEOs from different cryptocurrency projects, different thought leaders from digital spaces to law to anything regarding this whole movement. What I bring it all under the umbrella of decentralization. I just wanted to throw that in so you guys can close it out. But I'm a huge fan of your work, sir, and it's an honor to have you on. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I mean, in closing this, I'd say first off, I realize I've been a little hard on you, but I'm doing that. In good faith. The most important thing is that that you guys exist, right? That there still exists a community of people who not only understand how technology works, but who want to build it towards progressive human ends. The vast majority of people I know who are who are technologically qualified, the kids who come out of Stanford or MIT end up going to work for Goldman Sachs building algorithms that extract value from the market, or take BJ Fogg's captology to learn the truly darker side of the attention economy and how to not just create sticky apps and websites and hypnotizing technologies, but ones that are programmed to elicit certain behaviors from us. These kids are studying Pavlovian response and Freudian response and the behavioral triangle, and all these. What they're learning are really the dark arts, and how to translate them into digital platforms so that our technologies can extract value from us on behalf of those same 50 shareholders who own half the world's wealth right now. So yay that you exist, and yay that you want to build technologies along that are consistent with peer-to-peer values from the bottom up. Right. That said, my biggest fear is not you or your intentions, but whether or not the majority of the user base that could eventually migrate to the platform will be capable of distinguishing what the space is about. So, Mark, or the Winklevoss brothers, when they got interested in Bitcoin, it was completely misunderstanding what Bitcoin was for, what a blockchain is for, and they did manage, with their massive billions, to hijack both practically and culturally what the blockchain even means to a majority of people. The blockchain now means to people, oh, did I get in early enough to make money off this ridiculous pyramid scheme, which is the opposite, right? It's the opposite. And part of the reason why that happened is because the blockchain people were not good enough at expressing what problem they were solving for one, and second is they were using symbol systems, token and coin, that are so embedded in our psyche culturally as scarcity-based currencies that we regular people couldn't shift fast enough. It's
right.
the same.
We're doing the opposite here.
I know.
If you're willing to set up an Omni wallet, we will give you amps for being here because that's the way we are. And if you participate in the philosophy channel on our Slack, and thank you for joining the Divi Slack and the Synereo Slack. It's great. It's great to have you in there. You can get on a lot of amps because we amp the content we want, and that creates a good incentive for a lot of people. Maybe not you, but for a lot of people.
But just in closing, what I was going to say was there was a moment when the AOL people got plugged into the real internet. Those of you who are old remember it. It was the moment that thousands of people in AOL came onto Usenet, not understanding what the internet was for. And it changed the fabric of the internet. And we are still recovering from that initial onslaught of people who didn't know what the technologies were for, and for whom the language of the net evoked very different. These were signs to them of different things. So, I mean, the main thing I would advise you guys to be aware of is that the greater culture is not primed to hear these words or to understand these technologies the same way that we do, right? And they're the more profound task than building the technology will be priming the greater culture to behaviors that are consonant with the value system of the technology.
Yeah.
I mean,
let's hear from Dor. Let's hear from Dor.
These things are.
Yeah. Let's hear from Dor, the CEO, on those issues. And
I would rather continue listening to what Douglas has to say.
Hi.
Well, Douglas Rushkoff, are you going to talk Dor really quick? Otherwise, I'll think our.
I think I got the gist of it out there. It's just I'm just talking about the way you communicate and how you bring people on, the onboarding process, so that they understand. For most people, the ideas of tokens are still something you can accumulate and save for the future, not a balance that you might try to keep near zero in order to. People don't understand money as a way of optimizing transactions and communication. They think of money as a way to stave off death, and those are two. You know what I mean? Those are two really different anchors, and what you're talking about is not just a different way of using technology, but something that's going to require a certain amount of re-education, really, of your user base.
No, they won't have to know anything about AMPs at all to use the social network. We will.
What Douglas is saying is that AMPs are fundamentally part of the problem of tokenization and of accumulation, right? I don't know that decentralized platform is going to be the cure for that, right? It's just a complete reframing of how we look at life at large, right? So Douglas, are you suggesting that decentralized mechanism like the one that we offer is an opportunity to do this type of re-education? So I'm not seeing the path to that just with new tools, right? Because if anything, it just makes numbering anything a bit easier, right? Everything can be much more finely portioned out. All of the measurements are just there in front of you. Everything you do can be measured so quickly, so easily.
Yeah, I guess what I'm saying is that there are many people that look to new technologies and platforms for their capacity to somehow make them rich. You know, and that's the current cultural mindset is that, oh, is this a better means to that end? And it's a different end that we're talking about. And yeah, there's a place, as you know, there's a place for advertisers and corporations on here to do tasks they've done before. But it's a fundamentally different operating system that you're talking about. It's the one that we had in 1988 and 1990 for what the peer-to-peer network society would be, or what Burning Man saw, or what Occupy saw. There's it's just the way you communicate this is going to be as important as the way the platform functions.
Yeah, we're creating a new operating system for the internet here.
You have to understand that we aren't alone. Like I said, I talk to people all the time in crypto. Literally every day it's crypto. And I know these communities, by the time Synereo launches or any big network takes the pie, which I think Synereo has a fantastic business model, it explodes. Because what I'm hearing is you need a bunch of smart people to teach it to the people that need help. And people out there need help and they need alternatives. And once you have those tools in place, it's game on, because it's going to shift everything quick.
Difficulty.
So there is one thing in the network which does take a bit of the edge out of just accumulating, and that's the reputation mechanism. I'm sorry I couldn't participate in this chat for most of the time that it went on. So I don't know if you've spoken about it, but the reputation mechanism is actually in place in many ways to balance the monetary power, right? So if you take a look at the white paper, we actually have a nice exploration of that right at the beginning, where we go and discuss the notion of Rio as something that balances amps in the system. So right now, essentially, money equates into how much noise you can make, right? That's a very very correlated. What's the word I'm looking for? Well, you understand what I'm saying. More money, more voice. And in the system, there's marginal utility to amps in that you can only throw so much at a message before throwing more makes it less efficient or less beneficial in terms of getting your message out there than it would be to work on creating a reputation of someone who creates valuable content. And either way, it's always directed only at those who are initially interested in what you have to say or who know you in some way. So in that, it is an attempt to weaken the power of just accumulating more and more, because there's a very hard-coded limit or a very finely defined marginal utility of this power. But bottom line, Rio, this reputation measure, is also a number, right? It's not something that you can accumulate completely. There's an asymptotic relationship to its growth compared to the attention that you receive, to the appreciation that your content gets in the network, but it's still some a game of tokens in a similar way to what you described, right? We have to get more of this. You have to get more Rio, and then you can get more amps, and when you get more amps, you can get more blah 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 blah. So I'm curious if you think, I mean, I'm from the school of thought where you can't, saying that you can't really educate people with ideas. You can't really change their minds just by saying, guys, if you think this way, it's probably going to be better for everyone. But rather, in the school of thought, I think very nicely encapsulated in what Buckminster Fuller said. You can't, I'm sure you know that one, right? You can't change people's minds. You only create the tools that allow them to create new mental models, to create new ways of thinking. And so I was wondering, well, first of all, which school you ascribe yourself to, and assuming it's the second one, or even if it's the first one, but you have any advice for us about how to build tools that do push us towards less of this issue that you describe about the tokenization of everything. What sort of tool would you build? What sort of device or what sort of technology you think would make sense? What would be the next step towards that?
Yeah, I don't really know. I mean, I'm not talking about giving classes, to people so that they're ready to come into this world, but that you are precise and deliberate with the signs that you use. So for most people, when they go into a world that has some kind of money or coin or thing in it, it triggers a very well embedded gamified sensibility about what money is, right? And your amps are something different than that. It's not gold. You know, it's something, I don't want to accumulate amps to go buy a guitar. You know, I'm doing something else here. I am creating I'm creating the current for society to run, you know, and it's a collective process. So I'm just thinking that unless there's enough people on the platform who understand the values, and we thought there were in the early internet days, that don't worry, there's a critical mass of us, so even when they come on, it won't get commercial. They're never going to put ads on this thing. We all thought Amazon would fail because there was no commerce on the net. We thought it was anchored too strongly the other way. You know, so that's all I'm saying is that you guys are, and I don't know enough about the platform yet, and I'll try to learn, but you guys are in the same position as the original architects of the internet were back when. And one of the main problems one of their main mistakes was underestimating how well embedded certain behavioral tropes are. And one of the ways to avoid that is, particularly in a system like this, where you're talking, where you are, maybe you won't, maybe as Jim says, you won't talk to the public about this, but once there's a currency and a blockchain and a crypto thing, it sounds like, oh, here's another one of those. And let's go in there, and I'm going to get in early and make some messages, and I'll get Coke to let me sponsor their thing, and then I'm going to get lots of amps, and ooh, I'm going to be the influencer, and then I'll get a TV show. That's how kids see the net. You know what I mean? And this is a much bigger deal, is all I'm saying. So there's got to be ways to in the UX of this platform and the language around it, there's probably ways to mitigate that response, is all I'm thinking.
So can I ask
out of respect
real quick?
Out of respect for time, I just want to thank Douglas Rushkoff for coming on today. Also,
Thanks.
To Christian Pearson for setting up the tech for this. And
wait, John, but if we have 2 more minutes, I would really like to know, Douglas, if you think there's one specific or a few specific mistakes that you know, the so-called creators of the internet made, or the first communities on the internet made, that if handled differently would prevent or at least alleviate some of these issues for the people coming in later on?
They called me the devil when I said that someday the internet would be funded by advertising. Okay, they couldn't believe it. We had it then.
But Jim, let's let our guest say that as well.
And Douglas Rushkoff, feel free to leave when you need to. And thanks again.
Yeah, I'm leaving someone else sitting there waiting for me. I'm supposed to be doing some interview. These are our pie in the sky, okay? One of them was not doing two-way linking, but doing one-way linking. So if we had two-way linking the way Ted Nelson was thinking about it, you know, there would be all sorts of credit we could arrange. There'd be privacy issues. Two was ICANN was sort of ill-conceived as a body, and I still feel like the focus on speeds and feeds over access. You know, I would have preferred we get the whole world on a text-based internet first, and then turn it into the fucking Netflix bullshit TV thing that it is today, rather than make it TV and then hope that, you know, people get online. And when people get online with these devices, which is how they are, they're not part of the productive digital world. They're part of the receive-only television world. And
it's just an extension of the consumerist market.
Yeah, which to me is a problem in a world where we need to distribute value creation. You know, people think that what I'm saying, that I'm some kind of socialist wanting to redistribute the spoils of capitalism after the fact, and I'm not. I'm trying to pre-distribute the means of production before the fact, and that's when you get your revolution. So
the way we're distributing value is we have an AMP for attention, we have an ETH for computation on the blockchain, we have Divi dollars for our Divi collaboration, and there will be thousands of these currencies, and it won't impede a person. They won't see the trades underneath going on. They won't have any idea there's a currency behind it that is engineered for the social good that we want to build into the coin. A Divi token, for example, represents a proof of cooperation.
Right. I think
I
we should
hear
let
you.
Douglas go.
I'm
Why-
going to play with it. I'll be back. We
Yeah.
can always talk. We can always talk more. I just got to run away.
Yeah, I think we'll invite you in a few months again to see how we progress.
It's been a huge
Thanks so much for your time, Douglas.
All right. You be good. Love you all.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Great thing.
Yeah, equally, brother.
All right. Shalom, everybody.
Shalom.
Ciao.
Cool. So I'm gonna officially hand over my moderator duties, but I'm eager to stay on a little bit because I would also like to comment at this point.
Good, great job.
You know, I promise not to dominate, but you know, I just am not good at keeping promises.
I'm gonna mute you next time. I love you.
You shouldn't have put that shirt on.
Wrong shirt.
Yeah, you got to go with a more mellow shirt so you'll kind of feel the part. No, but you did fine, Jim. We pulled it off.
Yeah, thanks to everyone.
Good job. Good job, Mr. Guyron. John.
Good job. You all making the content. I'm just here to.
So I gotta bounce, guys.
That's a
stream will
very
end.
deep connection back to the roots of the internet, and I think that, you know, if we